So welcome guys, today we will solve the weird algorithm problem in the CSES problem set. It is probably the easiest problem in the whole problem set. So now let's get started. So first let's start off by reading the problem statement. The problem statement says, consider an algorithm that takes as input a positive integer n. If n is even, the algorithm divides it by 2, and if n is odd, the algorithm multiplies it by 3 and adds 1. The algorithm repeats this until n is 1. For example, the sequence n equal to 3 is as follows, and they have given an example on how the algorithm will perform for n equal to 3. Your task is to simulate the execution of the algorithm for a given value n. So now let's try to understand what they want us to do. So now what the algorithm is telling us is basically if n is even, okay, if n is even, then what you do is you change the value of n. Now how will you change the value of n? Is that you make n will be equal to n divided by 2. That is what the algorithm wants us to do if n is even. Now let's say if n is odd. So as you know, n can either be only even and only odd, because any number can either be even and odd. So if n is odd, they say change the value of n to what? Change the value of n to current value of n into 3 plus 1, right? Correct. So now let's try to understand the problem better by the example that they have given, right? So initially we were given n equals to 3. Fine, now n is 3 with us. Our algorithm will check what is n odd or even, right? What is 3? 3 is odd. We all know 3 is odd. So the value of 3 will be changed to what? N into 3 plus 1. So in place of n there will be 3, so it will be 3 into 3 plus 1, which is 3 into 3 plus 1, which will be 10, right? The next value of n is 10, right? Now the algorithm will check, should I stop the implementation? No, the implementation will stop only when n is 1. Until and unless the value of n is equal to 1, this algorithm will continue. So let's continue. What is the next part? The next part is, again let's check for value of 10, if n is even or odd. So here, as we know, n is equal to 10, which is even. Now let's perform the operation which we perform for even number, that is n is equal to n divided by 2. So 10 is equal to n will be equal to 10 divided by 2. What is 10 divided by 2? 5. We all know, correct? Yes, we have 5 here, we have 10 here. Again, since 5 is not 1, we will again continue the algorithm. 5 is odd, then again 5 into 3 plus 1, 5 into 3 is 15 plus 1, that is 16, right? Here it is, 16 is the value that we got. Now again, since 16 is even, again we will perform the operation for even number, that is n equals to n divided by 2, or we have to perform 16 divided by 2, that is 8, correct? Yes, we have 8 here. Now again for 8 is even, again same operation for even numbers, that is n divided by 2, that is 8 divided by 2, which will be 4, right? 8 divided by 2 will be 4, right? 4 here we have, again same. What is 4? 4 is still even. Yes, it's still even, so it will be 4 divided by 2. Now the n will be 2. Again n is still even because 2 is even number. It will be 2 divided by 2, which will be 1. And here our algorithm will finally stop. So one of the concepts that I wanted to introduce to you before moving on to pseudo code about this problem is that modulos concept, that is represented by this symbol, or shift 5 you can press on your keyboard to get the modulus symbol. Now what does this symbol represents is basically if you do, let's say 6 modulus 5, so modulus symbol will only return the remainder of the operation that you are performing. That is, what will be the remainder if 6 is divided by 5? In this case the remainder will be 1, so this will return 1. Similarly, if you do modulus of 10 modulus 3, again this will be 1, and so on. Now the modulus operation is very much important in finding if a number is even or odd, because as we know, a number is even if it is divided by 2 without any remainder. Okay, so to check if the number is even, you simply have to do is, if let's say we have to check for n if it is even or odd, we can do simply n modulo 2, and if it is equal to 0, then we know for sure that this number is equal to even number, and else this number is equal to odd number. Okay, if it is not equal to 0 or it is equal to 1, because either it can be 0 or 1. So now let's try to understand the pseudocode of the problem. For those of you who don't know, pseudocode is basically the structure of your code, or you can say the flow chart which you make when you are just learning the programming. So now I've used the Python code as my pseudocode because Python is very much closer to English, I would rather say, and it is a very least technical programming language. So yeah, here n is equal to int of 10, that is we are taking the input for n from the user and we are putting it inside n, right? And we are putting it inside int because this input function always takes string as an input, and then we are printing the value of n, the current value of n, as we have to start printing the value. And end equals to this part basically means that since the print function of Python is by default gives a new line, this parts make sure that the cursor for the next print is after a white space instead of new line. Okay, now we will use a while loop here. I hope everybody knows what while loop is. A while loop is basically this code will be executed again and again until this condition is satisfied. The moment this condition is not satisfied, this loop will break, or this code will stop executing. So while n not equals to 1, as we want this algorithm to execute unless and until the value of n is not equal to 1. That's what I have written here, while l not equal to 1. Check if the number is even, right? As I explained earlier, for checking if the number is even, we'll use the modulo symbol. If n modulo 2 is equal to 0. So checking if the number is even. Now if we found the number is even, we will simply put n equals to n divided by 2. Now here I have used integer outside, or we can say typecasting, because by default if you do a divide operation on any number, the Python will automatically typecast that into float. So now to maintain the integer, I have kept int here. You can ignore this if you want. Else, that is if the number is odd, right? If the number is not even, it definitely has to be odd. Therefore else is used here. Else n is equal to n into 3 plus 1, which we have already been discussed and given in the problem itself. And again print the current value of n, again as I explained what n does here, and we'll again go here, right? After this the code will go again here, sorry, the execution will go here, and again this part will execute. Again it will check if it is even or odd, and it will every time perform an operation and print the value till n is not 1 as the question wants us to be. So guys, I hope my explanation was helpful. If it was, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more such content. And you can always ask for a specific question from me in the comment section, and I will try my best to deliver it. Thank you.